It's Friday, September 24th, and this is now on HNN.
No one deserves to experience this type of violence in the workplace.
The passenger arrested after allegedly punching a Hawaiian airline flight attendant appears in court. This comes as there's new calls for airlines to share a national no-fly list of unruly passengers.
This is a high priority.
Millions of Americans are now eligible for a Pfizer booster shot. I'm Natalie Brand with a look at who can get it, plus the president's message to those who are still unvaccinated.
We've got these stories, plus we're chatting with Jake Shimabukuro about his new album.
And it was like, it gave the album some momentum and credibility.
Coming up on This Is Now. Good afternoon. Thank you for watching. This is now on this TGIF Aloha Friday. We got Mark Carpenter in for Ashley. Let's get right to those latest numbers being reported by the State Department of Health.
Yeah, the state is reporting 9 new COVID fatalities, a count which includes 2 people in their 20s. Also, 403 new infections, with 248 on Oahu, 68 on the Big Island, and 45 on Maui. Now, nationally, President Biden is urging the millions of Americans who are now eligible for a booster shot to go get the added protection against COVID-19. Natalie Brand has the latest from the White House.
The White House says tens of millions of older and vulnerable Americans can now get their Pfizer booster shots. The president says he will get his.
The booster shot is free and easily accessible. Go get the booster.
President Biden's comments come after CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky overnight signed off on a series of recommendations made by an advisory committee, agreeing boosters should be offered to people 65 and up. It will also be available to people 18 and older with underlying health conditions. But in an unusual move, she put back in the recommendation for a third dose to individuals whose jobs might put them at risk, such as healthcare workers.
As CDC director, it's my job to recognize where our actions can have the greatest impact.
Moderna is in the process of seeking FDA authorization for a booster, and Johnson & Johnson is expected to follow suit. The administration's health officials hope to make additional recommendations in coming weeks.
The FDA is working closely with Moderna and J&J to get and process their data as quickly as possible. This is a high priority.
But the top priority remains getting shots in the arms of unvaccinated Americans.
Listen to the voices of the unvaccinated Americans who are lying in hospital beds, taking their final breath, saying, and literally we've seen this on television, if only I'd gotten vaccinated. If only.
Anna and
we're going to bring you back later.
Have to leave.
Yeah.
COVID also caused a scramble on The View. 2 co-hosts had to leave during the show after testing positive ahead of an interview with Vice President Kamala Harris. She did the segment from backstage instead. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, the White House.
Now, the State Department of Health said it's not yet advising residents to get the booster, but we'll see if that changes throughout the day. I did want to play out what Dr. Melinda Ashton had to say. She's the Chief Executive Officer for Hawaii Pacific Health.
Can you explain where we are with the Department of Health and these booster shots?
Sure. We've been anticipating these booster shots for weeks now. President Biden announced that they would be available by September 20th, and here we are, it's the 24th. So lots of conversations with Department of Health about planning for boosters. So although we haven't gotten the official word yet from the Department of Health, I don't think we have any reason to think that they're not going to follow the ACIP and CDC leadership guidance.
Oh, okay. So do you think we'll get official word anytime soon, or?
I would expect so.
Okay.
Yeah, generally the word from Department of Health has come quite quickly after the CDC announcement.
2 Hawaiian Air flights had to turn around mid-flight Thursday because of disruptive passengers. Flight 22, heading for Seattle, returned to Honolulu yesterday after a passenger refused to wear a mask. No one was hurt. But on Flight 152 a few hours earlier, a passenger is charged for allegedly punching a flight attendant twice. State sheriffs handcuffed 32-year-old Stephen Sloan Jr. of the Big Island on a flight to Hilo after an alleged unprovoked attack in which he hit a crew member in the head and chest. Sloan was scheduled to make his initial appearance this morning, but that's been moved to Monday because he either refused to participate in the proceeding or was physically unable to. Sloan had no criminal record before this, just some traffic tickets, but he now faces the federal penalty for assaulting an airline crew member, up to 20 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000. A nearby passenger tells us Sloan was upset because the flight attendant accidentally bumped him. Hawaii lawmakers and Congress say more needs to be done to protect airline employees. Here's more from Representative Kai Kahele.
While this was happening, I was presiding over a transportation infrastructure aviation subcommittee hearing on this exact issue, which is the surge of air rage and its effects on workers, airlines, and airports. And, the bottom line is no one deserves to experience this type of violence in the workplace. And, it's something that we need to take very, very seriously. And we're seeing more of these incidents. A matter of fact, there's thousands of them that have happened just over this past year. And it's the result of unruly passengers. As travel has picked up again, these things are happening.
New at noon, Delta wants all airlines to share a national no-fly list of unruly passengers. The call echoes similar pleas from airline workers' unions. Earlier this week, the Association of Flight Attendants called on both regulators and airlines to coordinate their list of unruly passengers. The Federal Aviation Administration has fielded complaints against almost 4,400 passengers this year alone. Such complaints have risen dramatically since the pandemic and often stem from requirements to wear those masks. Delta says it's banned 1,600 people.
Tourists are willing to pay more for authentic cultural experiences. That's according to a recent survey from the University of Hawaii. And that development is also right in line with the Hawaii Tourism Authority's latest campaign. We caught up with HTA officials.
Attracting the right visitor, a mindful visitor, one who comes here for a deeper, more enriching experience, connecting to people and place through culture is really the message that we've been putting out.
Malama is to cherish and protect.
HTA launched Malama Hawaii back in May, an initiative that moves away from activity promotion to focus on meaningful cultural experiences connecting visitors with the community. Rebranding, which in light of this summer's incidents involving tourists and native wildlife, is needed.
We're not your playground, we're not your paradise, but actually this is a place where you can come, learn these things, and actually apply them when you go back home.
Another key insight from the UH survey, 80% of those who answered also would pay more for locally sourced food. Excellent news for family-owned farm Mari's Gardens, which supplies hydroponically grown produce to the state's restaurants and hotels.
It's usually much fresher. And it's also, because it's fresher, by the time it reaches the end user, it's just a higher quality. And that's not something that is easily replicatable by something that you bring in.
When the pandemic arrived in 2020, Mari's lost 60% of its revenue in a matter of days. And COVID highlighted just how interconnected local businesses are. So if the survey findings prove true, the benefits could be widespread.
If we can kind of work around all of the hardships that COVID is causing and make it through, we'll be, able to have a pretty bright future in being in an industry that is a necessity.
I think one of the powerful parts of tourism is that essentially Hawaii becomes a classroom. And then we export this ike, this knowledge, and we hopefully encourage visitors to go back to the places that they're from and malama each other and the place that they live.
So let's talk more about tourism. The Delta variant's impact on the industry is expected to linger for several more weeks. Top economists at UH say the state will not likely see a meaningful increase in visitor arrivals until Thanksgiving. The Delta variant forced state and county officials to bring back restrictions. Governor Ige even asked tourists to stay away, if you'll recall. A full economic recovery is not expected until 2023 now. UH economists say that's when the state's GDP will surpass 2019 levels.
Well, following Oahu's recent move, Kauai is moving away from its tier system. Mayor Derek Kawakami says he's having to modify the county's rules to keep up with the Delta variant. Any changes to Kauai's current regulations would need Governor Ige's approval.
When we last updated our tier system and created tiers 5 and 6, we anticipated dropping all restrictions once the state hit a fully vaccinated rate of 70%. However, as have seen the effects of the Delta variant, and as we approach that 70% benchmark, we know that continued safety measures will be necessary to contain the spread of disease on our island.
All right, that was the mayor of the Garden Isle speaking right there. Mark, are you ready for this weekend or what?
Here we go.
I know.
Weekend is here.
Yeah, and I'll take us to a live look outside coming in on this video feed. It's 82 degrees out there right now, and I think that's about as hot as it's going to get for today, but what will those temps look like for the weekend? Here is Guy Hoggy with the update.
And those trade winds will be running firm. Today, 15 to 20 miles an hour. Humidity levels, not an issue. Now, with those winds picking up, we're also going to see a slight boost in that east shore, but we're more concerned with the big swell heading into north and west shores. It's already solid, going to get bigger throughout the day. That's why the high surf advisory is posted for the north shores. West side is going to be formidable as well, and we still have some really fun-sized waves rolling into the south shore. So the weather's not going to change in any significant way anytime soon. We'll have more brisk and breezy winds all the way through Tuesday, and we'll have those wind and mulka showers from time to time with a slight boost in those showers coming in on Sunday. Keep it here on Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
Some great actors are said to have the ability to disappear into their roles, but in China, one actress has disappeared from the internet completely, but she has been spotted in person recently. Ivan Watson explains exactly what's happening.
Imagine one of Hollywood's biggest celebrities erased from the internet in a single night. That's basically what happened to Zhao Wei, one of China's most successful actresses. A star of Chinese television and film, Zhao was also a wealthy entrepreneur who bought vineyards in France and acquired a stake in one of China's biggest film studios. That all changed one night in August when Zhao suddenly, inexplicably, disappeared from the Chinese internet. Her movies and TV shows removed from streaming sites, her social media accounts erased.
To imagine that someone's name, history is eliminated from the internet, it shows the power and the infrastructure of China's internet architecture and who really is in power. It is the Chinese party state.
China experts say the canceling of Zhao Wei is part of a much bigger crackdown now underway in China.
The whole entertaining industries was targeted by Xi Jinping.
Canada-based analyst Wen Zhao argues there's only room for one real star in today's China. Chinese President Xi Jinping.
Xi Jinping deliberately eliminate any independent social influence might be out of his control. He wants to take control of everything.
This summer, Beijing issued new rules, cutting back the activities of China's wildly popular celebrity fan clubs. Other regulations, Beijing says, are aimed at restoring morality, ban male celebrities from appearing too effeminate on TV, and limit minors to 3 hours of online video games a week. Meanwhile, the government introduced a new subject to the curriculum for students of all ages from elementary school to universities: Xi Jinping thought, an approach that some say echoes the cult of personality of Mao Zedong, the founding father of communist China.
People have only one voice to be heard, only one leader to worship.
In recent months, Xi also cracked down hard on China's huge tech and private education industries, wiping out trillions of dollars in market value from some of China's biggest companies. As Xi pushes for so-called common prosperity and a more level economic playing field, while shaping people's minds to his worldview. So where does that leave people like this canceled actress Zhao Wei? She appears to have recently re-emerged in several photos that went quickly viral. The glamorous actress, almost unrecognizable in a humble t-shirt and shorts. Ivan Watson, CNN, Hong Kong.
Ukulele virtuoso Jake Shimabukuro has put together his dream album. Jake and Friends is set to be released this November, and our Jim Mendoza talks story with Jake.
I love the title, Jake and Friends. You can actually now call these people friends.
Oh, thanks, Jim. It was such an honor. This whole project. I just can't believe it. It all came together.
What's the backstory for the project? I mean, is it something that you had conceptualized for a while, and it was just a matter of putting it all together?
Yeah, well, a few years ago, my manager, Van Fletcher, and I were talking, we were having a conversation, and he had mentioned, yeah, we should do a project like this. And in the back of my mind, I was like, nah, that ain't ever going to happen, But we were so fortunate. Ray Benson, who's become a dear friend over the years, he agreed to co-produce it with me. And the first phone call he made was to Willie Nelson. And he got Willie Nelson on board. And so a few months later, we were in the recording studio on Maui, recording with Willie. And once we finished his track, then it was like, it gave the album some momentum and credibility. And then it was a lot easier to get other people on board.
Did you have a familiarity, or did you have a contact with these people before? I mean, you got names all over the place. You got Loggins and Michael McDonald and the gentleman from Yes. How did you have these relationships already, or is it something that just kind of morphed as you did the album?
Some of them I did, but for example, Jack Johnson and Paula Funga, right? They're the opening track, and so Jack was actually introduced me to Ziggy Marley years ago when we got to play his Kokua festival. So that he helped make that connection. Ziggy sounds amazing on it, and then of course Jack and Paula, they're just magic. And then when I was on tour with Jimmy Buffett, years ago, he introduced me to guys like Sonny Landreth. I know he even helped to kind of set up that initial meeting with Bette Midler and I, when we went out to UK to play for the Queen and all of that. So a lot of it is there was either some direct relationship where we worked together in the past, or some indirectly, right, as well. So yeah, so it's just amazing how I'm just so grateful, that everyone were down with doing it, and everyone made time, to come into the studio and record the album with me. So yeah.
So you guys actually did the recording together. It wasn't one of those long distance, I'm in one studio here and you're in a studio in Nashville or anything like that. It was in person.
Yeah, there were only 2 tracks where we didn't do in person, and one was Ziggy Marley's track. We worked remotely. I worked home, here I worked in Hawaii, and he worked on the mainland, and we just kind of communicated, over the phone and through technology, right? And then the other one was John Anderson from Yes. So that one, I worked on the uke track, would send it to him, then he would work on his vocals, send it back, and but everybody else was in person, and most of it, all of it really, except for the 2 remote ones, were all live takes in the studio.
16 tracks on this album. Mm-hmm. For people, it's the release date, I think, is November 12th, I think, something like that, right? November 12th, but you're dropping stuff on YouTube now, because I did see that the Moon Taxi Too High number, and you can hear the audio from Stardust. You can hear that. So are you slowly going to be dropping stuff, or is it all that's it for now?
Yeah, so we just released those 2 singles, to just give people like a taste of the vibe of the album, but each track is so different and so unique, and it tells its own story. But I thought those 2 tracks were really nice, to release, because you've got the real nostalgic one with Willie Nelson, but then the band Moon Taxi, I just love them. I mean, they're so positive, and they just have such great hearts, and their music is fantastic. And I think that song Too High, which is really, it's the peace sign, it's like it's really a song that I think radiates some great energy and positivity, and that's what we all need to hear right now.
Awesome interview, Jim. And you're going to hear more from that coming up this evening on First at 4 with Mark, when Jim puts together another story with his interview with Jake. Let's get to some other entertainment news. This is certainly a buzz online. Yep, there's a new Mario movie in the works. Yep, guess who's playing it? I guess I just gave it away. Chris Pratt is going to voice Mario. Yep, and that's going to be coming out in December, so you got a little while to wait for this. Charlie Day, you'll know him from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, is going to play Luigi, and Bowser, voiced by Jack Black. Mario movies have not always had the best success.
I was about to say, I only hope it's better than the original Mario movie that we saw back in the day here.
At least this is a cartoon, right? They're not trying to bring it to real life, although a CGI, like, real-life Mario movie would be cool.
We'll see, but I don't know. I may opt to just, maybe some Mario Kart or Super Smash Brothers, a classic, iconic video game right
Mario Kart is actually, we have a new Super Nintendo in that newsroom that is under Ian Shurin's desk. We can bust it out right after
and there
this.
are a lot of monitors in this room, so
Yes.
a lot of possibilities. Now, something else that's trending, there is scientific evidence that humans may have inhabited North America thousands of years before than originally thought.
Oh.
Archaeologists recently discovered fossilized footprints at a New Mexico national park, which indicates humans were there 23,000 years ago. Now, in addition to the footprints, scientists also located mammoth tracks, prehistoric wolves and birds, and giant ground sloths, which sounds absolutely terrifying.
Ground sloth. Giant sloths. Yikes.
Giant sloths.
And looking at these images, the fossilized footprints are so cool looking. And from my understanding of reading this morning on CNN, this was sort of in a wetland sort of area that was like a sort of like a shallow lake area.
So it was conducive to it being very well preserved.
That's amazing.
What a discovery.
What else you find?
Yeah, a little news for sneakerheads out there. We talked some video games. Another passion, shoes. Now, keep an eye out for the Billie Eilish-themed Nike Vegan Air Jordans. This is interesting. Made with at least 20% recycled material. One of them, lime green, to match her iconic hairstyle she once had. And the other will be tan. She calls them, quote, an ode to herself. And the kicks, available next week at a cost of $170.
I always call that color Nickelodeon green. It reminds me of the Double Dare slime a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the slime green that you got there.
All right, got some more tech news to get to, guys. The iPhone, the new one, is out today. iPhone 13 on sale now. Not huge overhaul from the 12, but it does feature a better camera, battery, and processing core. And it comes in different sizes too, but I got my eye on that Samsung Flip just because, as we mentioned before on This Is Now, I'm nostalgic about flip phones, and it looks really cool.
Well, where do you stand with the phones? Because, you see Apple coming out with, the different models. Do you wait? How many models do you wait before actually getting the next one? I usually like to do 3, but I use my camera and video so much for our job, and it's so tempting every time they say, the camera's better, the camera's better, to get the new one. But I think I have an 11 now, so I might be. So you got a couple more additions to wait, huh?
Yeah, let's real quickly one more story.
Yeah, and a historic artifact from the USS Arizona. This is remarkable. Wow. It can now be seen at a Delaware museum. A 650-pound piece of the ship, which was sunk in the attack on Pearl Harbor, is on public display for the next year. The exhibit is called Oil Still Bleeds, and reports say the Fort Miles Museum worked for 2 years to bring it over. It just speaks to the level of coordination that's needed for this. And, yeah.
Very cool. And a reminder.
Treasured piece of history.
For sure. And a reminder, those tours to the USS Arizona Memorial just resumed this week, so you can get an even closer eye on history here at home. You guys, that is going to do it for This Is Now on this Aloha Friday. Mark Carpenter is going to be back at First at 4 on KHNL. Have a good afternoon.